Hello, in this tutorial we are going to solve the FizzBuzz challenge in JavaScript. What we're going to do is we're going to create a function. We won't pass in any arguments to the function. So when we invoke the function, what's going to happen is we'll just log out numbers 1 to 100 in the console, and then what we'll do is we'll solve for FizzBuzz. So I'm going to create a function declaration. I'm going to use the keyword function, and I'm just going to say solve FizzBuzz. This will be a function that isn't expecting to receive in any arguments, okay? And what I'll do is just log out to the console numbers 1 to 100. And how we can do that is by putting our console.log inside of a for loop. So I'll say for, we just initialize our counter variable I at 1. So we'll say let I is equal to 0. Apologies, I is equal to 1. And we will run while I is less than or equal to 100. And after every loop iteration, we just want to increase I, our counter variable, using the increment operator plus plus. And then inside of here, all we need to do is just log out I. So this will log out numbers 1 to 100 if we call or invoke the function. So let's just do that to get our numbers logged out. And then what we'll do is we will solve for the FizzBuzz challenge. So if I just refresh, we now have numbers 1 to 100. Okay, awesome. So what do we want to do in terms of FizzBuzz? Well, FizzBuzz is a game where the first person says 1, the other person says 2, but every time a user gets to a number that you can multiply by 3 or divide by 3, so 3, 6, 9, they have to say fizz. Any number that divides in evenly to 5, so 5, 10, they say buzz. But every time a number divides in evenly to both 3 and 5, such as 15, we have to say FizzBuzz. So how are we going to do this? Well, thankfully, we know in JavaScript we can make decisions using the if statement. So I'll use an else if to check for multiple conditions. So the first thing I want to do is I want to log out to the console FizzBuzz if a certain condition is met. In this case, if the number 3 divides in evenly, or sorry, I, our counter variable, divides in evenly to 3 with nothing left over, and the same for vive. So how can we do this? We can do this with the modulo operator. So what we'll do is we'll say if I mod 3, so if I mod 3 divides in evenly, so there's nothing left over, and I mod 5 divides in evenly, what we'll do is we'll just console.log out FizzBuzz. So I'll say console.log FizzBuzz. Okay, awesome. Okay, so basically we know that the number 3 divides in evenly to 3, and there's nothing left over. I mod 3, so if I was 3, we'd have nothing left over. And if we were on, let's say, counter variable 5, 5 mod 5 is equal to 0, nothing left over. But both conditions have to evaluate to true for this entire statement to evaluate to true. So the number 15 would meet this criteria, and we would log out FizzBuzz. Let's then write a condition to check for if I mod 3 is equal to 0. So in other words, any number that divides in evenly to 3 with nothing left over, 3, 6, 9, etc. In this case, what we want to do is just log out fizz. Okay, awesome. And then what we want to do is just check to see if a number divides in evenly to 5. And if that was the case, then we want to log out buzz. Sorry, this here should just be fizz. Yeah, and then we're just going to check our condition to see if the number we're iterating over divides in evenly to 5. In that case, we can just log out console.log buzz. Okay. Now, we know if a number doesn't divide in evenly with nothing left over to 3 and 5, it doesn't divide in evenly to 3, and it doesn't divide in evenly to 5, it must be a number then else that we just want to log out of the console. So all we need to do is just log out our counter variable I, and remember I is just our counter variable. So the first time we run this loop, I will have a value of 1. Okay, so we will console.log out the value of I. When I is a value of 2, we will log out the value 2, but when I is a value of 3, what will happen is we'll enter our if statement. Well, does 3 divide in evenly to 3 with nothing left over? It does, but it doesn't meet the second condition here. Therefore, this if statement will evaluate to false. So we'll come down here, and we'll say, okay, does 3 divide in evenly to 3 with nothing left over? It does, so we log out fizz. Then we write out 4. For 5, we're going to log out buzz. So let me just save and refresh, and we'll see the result of our FizzBuzz challenge. So now what we have is we've 1, 2 fizz, 4, Buzz for 5, Fizz for 6, 7, 8, Fizz for 9, Buzz where 10 is 11, Fizz because 12 does divide an evening to 3 with nothing left over, 13, 14, and FizzBuzz. Okay, awesome. I will leave this code here. Underneath, there are more efficient ways in terms of more concise code to solve the FizzBuzz challenge, but I sincerely hope you enjoyed this tutorial.